Obviously, you'll see Crypto.com here on the stage. Sometimes you see it around the circuits of Formula One racing tracks. They've really made a big move. And just out of interest, any Crypto.com users here? Hands up. Yes? 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, somewhere around there. Yeah, he's going to be chatting to Faustine Fleuret, the president of Anziani. Let's give them a big, warm round of applause. The stage is yours.
Good afternoon, Eric.
Good afternoon.
Very glad to share the stage with you today. And as we only have 20 minutes, let's go directly into our topic. So firstly, we're emerging from a bear market. You could say that this is a very beginning of a new cycle, but there is a new starting point now. How do you see the market at that moment, and what's Crypto.com position in it?
Great question, and thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversations, and I think it's my third or fourth time now at the Paris Blockchain Week. It's a great event. Michael and the team has done an amazing job. Get to meet amazing people. A lot of things happen. Innovation is bursting, so always glad to be back here. So if we look at the market compared to last year, it's definitely a lot more positive. We can confidently say that we are out of the bear market. There will be no surprise to everybody. And that we have entered into the bull cycle. It really started around mid-October and to the lead of March, where we crossed the Bitcoin all-time high from the previous cycle. That's usually the sign that you have entered a new cycle. And we've seen tremendous activity, volume, engagement from our users and the industry, and we've been capturing a lot of that new flow coming to the space. But that doesn't come on its own. So we had to prepare quite a bit during the bear market. There's really three things that we focused on. First, although the market was subdued, there was not much volume, we invested in the infrastructure, the technology, to make sure when the market comes back, we can support our clients. And we had quite a few Bitcoin ATH coming up in March, peak volume, and the platform was stable, which was not the case for everybody in the industry. Second, we continued to secure licenses and reinforce our compliance foundation across the board. In Europe, we had registration in France, in Netherlands, in Spain, in Italy, in Singapore. We had a full license. And last week, I was in South Korea. We will be the first global player to enter the market in a regulated manner. And this morning, we announced that we were the first global player to get operational in Dubai. So really continuing that effort on the compliance front. And third is about building. When we talk about the bear market, always thinking, what do we build for the next cycle? And we invested a lot on that front, and maybe we'll talk about it a bit later, bringing great products that will scale when the bull cycle is there, and also giving a little bit more incentive to our users. During bear market, we had also to make some adjustments to make sure the business is sustainable. Now that the market is back, and we told our customers, when things are better, we'll give you back more. So we launched some amazing products around loyalty, around a card program that are super exciting, and we can see the intake and the demand for it is great to date. Yeah.
We'll come back to regulation and to Crypto.com product, but first maybe let's go back on the broad economic and market conditions. So they were not that good for the tech in general, and there was the FTX season that hampered confidence in crypto, and there are still preconceived ideas that are quite negative around Web3 that circulate. However, what we could notice, and there are some figures from the recent study that we published, that the adoption of crypto assets is still accelerating. So if we take France, 12% of the French people today hold crypto assets. It's much more than last year, which was 10%. It's a bit less than in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. It's more than in Italy and Germany. So, well, and it's probably much less than in the US, but we are catching up. So how do you explain this finally? Why acceleration of adoption despite not that very good conditions?
We also look a bit at the global user base around crypto, and I think it's this month and next month it's about to cross 600 million users globally. The adoption was slower during the bear market and usually is a bit more subdued, but it's still there. And when we get into bull cycle, there's a lot of money coming in, there's innovation, and it does bring adoption. And we have to step back. The technology that we're all working to make mainstream, the blockchain technology, it's a breakthrough innovation. And it brings benefit to societies, whether around store of value, digital ownership of content, assets, payment, settlement. Those are great use cases that bring tremendous value to customers, users, and societies. So that fundamental has not changed, whether there is a bear market or a bull market. This is why there is more adoption. And it will evolve over time depending on the cycles that we're in, but it will continue to grow. It's inevitable.
And what do you think, because we spoke a lot about the approval of a Bitcoin ETF in the US, we are seeing much more merging of traditional and innovative finance. Well, not all products are actually accessible to everyone. So what's your take on this, and how far do you see this convergence of the old finance and the new finance going?
I think convergence of TradeFi and digital asset finance is happening. It's becoming a major theme. We've seen it in many different respects, and the ETF is one example. We can talk about it in more detail. But as Crypto.com is something we believe in. In the long term, most assets will be tokenized, probably starting with financial assets and then more and more real-world assets. So our vision is can we support this transition? First, from a distribution standpoint, being able to distribute these new assets that will be tokenized. And second, more on the issuance and the technology side, so we can help large players to issue and bring those to the blockchain and then distribute those. So that, I think, is something that is happening. It's a very strong trend. We'll be offering products on that front. Let's maybe break it down. So we're talking about convergence of TradeFi and crypto. I would say there's maybe three aspects to it. The first one is you have a crypto product, a token, Bitcoin, Ethereum. You can distribute it natively. So you're a TradeFi institutions and you just have digital asset services and you offer it directly to your clients. Or you can wrap it into a traditional financial structure, an ETF or a future, an option, and distribute it. We actually have done that in the US through our CFTC regulated venue. We're one of the first to offer options on crypto for retail investors, not only on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also on Doge and other assets. It was the first in the market. So that's kind of that first level of product level convergence between TradeFi and digital asset finance. The second one you would see when you look at it, it's really about tokenization. I was just briefly mentioning it, of real-world assets. In our industry, we saw it first with stablecoin. That's tokenizing fiat money. And it's already 100, 200 billion of market cap. The next one we're seeing is tokenization of short-term debt, like treasury, short-term treasuries. BlackRock also issued a fund as well on that front. There's going to be more of those yield-bearing instruments that will be tokenized, and then they will move to other assets. That's really the second point, tokenization of real-world assets. That's a convergence there. And third is really around more traditional stuff that we do every day, is payment and settlement. We've been working with a lot of stablecoin providers to enable settlements between their clients for remittances and others. For example, we supported and with a preferred liquidity provider for PYUSD, the PayPal stablecoin, and they recently announced this week that they're integrating PYUSD into Zoom, their remittance platform, and transfer are free if you use the stablecoin. So those are the three items, I think, at the product level: wrapping in of crypto assets, tokenization of real-world assets, so they're becoming crypto, and third, using the crypto to move value, payment, settlement. Those are the areas where we see a lot of convergence.
But are you surprised? Because in our recent study, we also show that only 1/4 of the French people would be interested in an ETF if it was available in France. And you have much more of the people that would prefer a direct exposure to crypto. So is it a challenge to this convergence or the merge of the traditional financial products with crypto assets?
So I would say the ETF is a new channel, a new gateway for people to get exposure to the space. It doesn't cover everybody, but if you already have investment into stock, usually your broker will be able to give you access to ETF. And of course, we know that access to equity and stock is also limited. Not everybody has access to it or can break that barrier and enter that. But it's a great way to bring genuine flow to the industry. We monitor daily the inflow into the ETF, and I think as of today, we had $12 billion of net inflow into the asset class, thanks to the ETF, especially those in the US, which is massive. And when we look at the history of ETF, this is the most successful launch, all asset class combined, of an ETF. So it's quite extraordinary, and it's a genuine flow that is coming to the industry that will help on the demand front and will sustain this cycle that we're entering. So that's quite unique, and it's a good way to expand the funnel. But I would recommend, if people are keen, to go directly into the underlying, and that's where crypto.com comes in. I think it gives people more control. You don't have any of the ETF fees that you'll soon get. There is a short period of exemptions or lower fee, but it will not last. And redemption is very expensive as well on an ETF. So if you want control over your assets, you want lower fees, and you want to be able to rebalance. Sometimes I want to get out a portion of Bitcoin, go to ETH, go to Solana, go to other assets, or go back afterwards. You can't really do that when you just have a single asset exposure. So I can see from the survey that the French investors are quite savvy. They want to go to the underlying, and in the case of crypto, it's more efficient and you have more control.
Let's go back to regulation, because you started to mention that. With this in mind, in this regard, is regulation keeping up at this point? The state of development of regulations of crypto market is very different from one region to another one. In the EU, MiCA, that I think everybody knows right now, will be fully implemented at the end of the year. Where do you think policy should focus to help the industry capitalize on this renewal era for the market?
Great question. Following 2022 and the incident the industry faced, in particular FTX, but we had Luna, Celsius, and a few others, we were expecting a reaction, natural one, from regulators and government across the world. And we were not disappointed. Very strong reaction, depending on the market, around a few topics. The first one, of course, is consumer protection, because a lot of retail consumers were impacted by these failures of company and some of the fraud that was there. So you can see in most markets, that was the first thing that was implemented or strengthened. Then you had, of course, bankruptcy protection, especially how to make sure your citizens have jurisdictions to make sure their assets are recovered. And there was a lot of changes on how assets are custodied, what are the rights of each country and regulator to make sure in case of an incident, they're able to recover the funds, and first, if they can. So bankruptcy protection was important. Market integrity was also a big topic, basically to prevent trade manipulation, wash trading, bad trading practices generally. Those were also reinforced for our industry. Each country and regulator took a slightly different way of doing it at a different pace. Some are still pushing some new regulations in. It's not finalized. But that's, I think, a good base that was added. I know in Europe we do like to regulate first. I would think now we do have, especially with MiCA, a good base. And my concern is, as we put more and more restrictions on the different crypto players, it becomes extremely expensive to operate in a regulated manner, and it adds massive friction for users. So what happens there? Actually, the good crypto players have to exit the markets because it's not viable financially. And consumers go to unregulated platform or a scam platform they don't even know. So now it's more about, okay, implement some of these additional requirements. They make sense in most countries, and we have that dialogue with regulators when they don't, and we try to provide the industry feedback. But now, how can we promote the people that are doing the right things? They need to be allowed to say that they are actually regulated, they are doing the right things, and they can communicate that broadly to their customer and have reach. That's now the challenge we have in certain markets where it's hard for the regulated player to make money and to communicate about it. And that is a challenge because at the end, you want to protect consumers, but if there's no regulated players, then everybody will go into unregulated places and they have zero protection there.
And it's a huge challenge because what we could see in the survey also is that for now, people favors acquiring services from a third party, from a platform like Crypto.com, rather than holding their own wallet. So Crypto.com in our survey is the third most used platform by the French investors in crypto markets. So on the one hand, innovative actors like you seems the best actually to address this demand for crypto assets, as you are specialized in this asset class. You better address the young population. That is a big proportion of the population that wish to benefit from Web3. But on the other hand, we also know that people who love acquire crypto assets and they would like to get the services from their traditional third party, from their banks, from their advisors. And we also see that those investors in crypto assets usually also invest in other type of financial instruments. So in terms of your product pipelines, what is the focus of your company, and how can you ensure that those innovations will encourage the adoption?
Sure. I mean, firstly, at Crypto.com, we're a retail company. We are getting close to 100 million consumers globally. So our main focus is to ensure our retail experience for trading, custody is the most convenient, the smoothest, the most competitive, and that we give the right information for our customers to make decisions and the best decisions in terms of investment. So that remains our primary focus, making sure that experience is convenient, is safe, and we provide the right information. And we'll continue to invest on that front. We also want to make sure it's rewarding to be and stay and be loyal customers with Crypto.com. So we launched just a few months ago a very comprehensive loyalty program called Reward Plus, which gives benefits across our entire ecosystem, our card product, our yield-bearing product, our trading products, our referral product. So as people participate and stay on the platform, they get a lot of great benefits. So it's something we'll continue to do, especially as the market comes back. For example, if you look at our card program, we just launched maybe a tactical but a very interesting promotion where when you apply for a card, you get a free iPhone or a free Samsung, just to reward that acquisition and the step you're making to enter the space. So we'll continue to do that, very strong focus on retail. Second, we have now for about 3-4 years a professional venue for institutional clients, banks, and advanced traders with API and OTC services. It has become the second platform globally in terms of USD market. So it's grown tremendously. I think last month we did almost $100 billion of volume across spot and deriv. So it's a very strong offering. And we're strengthening it because we're seeing a lot of banks and traditional players wanting to offer crypto services, and we can partner. I think it's not a one versus the other. It's how do we help them get access to our liquidity, use our OTC services for block trades, our API capabilities to rebalance their positions. So there's a lot of partnerships that are ongoing, really supporting the traditional players by giving them access to our professional venue. I think those two aspects are quite key to us. There's a few segments historically we haven't covered well. One, recently we made some progress on the product front is for high net worth individual. So we launched a little bit more than a month ago Crypto.com Prime, which is an offer really dedicated to that segment with block trade capability, low pricing, tax services, inheritance services, white glove customer support, and that we didn't have really for that segment. So we're starting to look at what are the parts of our segment base, what are we offering, is it the right offering, and if it's not, bringing that custom-made offering for that segment.
And my last question, but the favorite one I wanted to ask you. You may have heard that France wishes to become the European hub, the Web3 hub, with an international outreach. The main bet was to set, and we spoke about that, a clear and adapted regulation, starting with MiCA, inspired from the French regime, to structure the EU Web3 industry and to attract foreign companies. For a major international player like you, do you think this is the right and successful strategy, or are there some missing bricks in this strategy?
Well, we picked France to be our continental Europe headquarter. So I think we do think France government and the different stakeholders in the ecosystem here are doing the right things. Having a clear framework on the regulatory front that is fit for purpose for our industry is always something we promoted and suggested. France was one of the first to do it with the registration system, like Singapore, probably around the same time. Understanding the space as a little bit different in nature, we need something fit for purpose. And so that was a great move from France, and that gave a lot of clarity, which for businesses and for us to make investments is critical. We know what is required, we know it's going to evolve, but it's stable, more or less, so we can invest. Second is you need to have at the government and political level a willingness to invest into the sector, to support players, to think that it will create jobs, and it's a trend, a sector that will be positive for the citizens and for the economy. That is not the case everywhere in the world, and I think in France it is the case that this is a promising sector that we want to invest. So you'll have different organisms like Business France and others that will be there to help companies set up, grow their business, hire people here in France, and make sure the business is enabled, not suppressed or blocked. That second parameter is not that easy to have, and I think France and the French government has that. I think the combination of the two, the clear framework and the willingness to invest into the sector and the participants makes a big difference. And that's also why we chose France as our regional headquarters here in continental Europe.
So I think that was the right conclusion. Choose France. Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Faustine and Eric. You guys could have had that whole conversation in French as well, but they obliged us and spoke English. This next panel is going to be speaking about regulation, which they briefly touched on, and it's a great pleasure to introduce my boss. Editor at large at Cointelegraph, Christina Cornet, will be moderating this panel, and I'll let her do the honors of introducing the rest.